Have you ever been trying to set up a stationary engine and find wheels are a little bit hard to find or a little bit expensive? Well, today I thought I'd show you how to make these wheels. I've made about 16 of these wheels in the past for different engines and trolleys and things like that, and they're actually pretty easy to make. All you need is a welder, cut-off saw, angle grinder and a few other bits and pieces, and a little bit of time. It takes 2 hours to make each one of these wheels. So I'll just walk you around and show you these wheels a little bit closer, and then we'll get started on showing you how to make them. So I think these wheels have actually come up really nice. This is a bit of 325mm pipe. It's 6 centimeters wide across the width of it here, and the spokes are 32mm by 6, and I'll show you how I cut those all up in a few minutes. But I've just put a bit of rubber car tyre here just to make them a little bit smoother to ride on. It's interesting, I might even make another video at some stage showing you how I make up these turntables. They're pretty easy to make as well. I've got some more wheels here. These ones I've just allowed to go rusty. I got them on this sort of a garden wagon. Another really good example of how easy it is to make up some simple wheels with a bit of steel that you can get from a scrapyard. Okay, here's our length of pipe, and just take a look at the measurement of it. Yeah, about 325mm, and as I said, it's 6mm thick. Don't know if you've seen one of these little devices before, made by Empire, found it in the local hardware store, and you can just put them on your steel ruler and undo this little nut here and slide it all the way down. That way you can get a constant depth on whatever it is that you're wanting to measure. Really good for making the spokes. But so what I do is I just put it on here and I mark the depth, and I do that all the way around, and I do it on maybe 6 or 8 different places. Then I get a piece of cardboard or paper and I wrap it around, and then that gives me a perfect 100% circle guided by these pencil marks, and I can then draw a pencil line all the way around. Okay, I think we've got that. That looks fairly good. Let's roll this over and start cutting. Okay, so we've got it cut off. We might just run the grinder around it just quickly, and then we'll run a wire brush with an angle grinder on it as well, just to clean it up so we've got a good surface to weld on. Okay, we've got the 4-inch angle grinder. We'll just run it around the edge around here on both sides and around the outside, just to give it a bit of a smooth edge to start with. Okay, so we've got the edge smooth now. We'll hook the wire brush up on the other angle grinder and we'll get this all cleaned up, get the rust off so we've got some nice edges. Okay, so we've got some nice smooth edges now ready for us to weld, but I'll use the belt sander on here now just to get a nice surface on the edge. Okay, so we've got a pretty nice smooth edge now. Smooth on the outside, smooth on the inside. Okay, here's a good example of how to use this sliding attachment to the ruler. The hubs in the centre of the wheel are going to be 900, so we just undo that screw, slide it down to 900, tighten him up, get our bit of pipe.
Now slide it on and slide it down until it touches the cut-off width.
Okay, there's the hub for our wheel. Okay, we've got our axle hub again and just need to clean it up a little bit. So again, got the belt sander on the bench. Okay, we'll just run a file through the inside to clean those burrs out. Okay, we've got our flat strap here in the cut-off saw. It's 32mm by 6. I've got my sliding steel ruler adjusted at 13.5mm. So we'll cut these spokes off and see if they fit nice and tight. Okay, so we've got that adjusted. We'll tighten it up.
We'll measure another one up, just to make sure, and we'll put them in the wheel. We want them to be firm and to be tight, but if they're too tight, then we have to grind them, so it's better to get them right first time.
Okay, we'll go and put these two spokes on the belt sander and get these rough edges taken off, and then we'll try and put them in the wheel and see if they're nice and firm. Okay, so this is the wheel we're going to try and end up with. It's a pretty nice wheel. It's got 6 spokes, so I'll show you how we go about marking out the spokes so we get them evenly spaced. Okay, we're going to go ahead and mark out the spacing of the spokes on our new rim. Now, when I made this wheel, I divided the circumference by 6, and that gave me a measurement that I could then transfer onto my calipers, and that got it pretty close first time round. I did go around and mark them with the texter, just so that by the time I got around to the last spoke, the measurement was exactly the same. So sometimes I had to rub them out a little bit just to get them into the right spot. I've already gone around with the calipers with this rim and I've marked them, and I've then put the centre punch in and given them a tap so that I've got a mark there that's easy to see when I come to do the welding. Now, to reliably and accurately make these wheels, I've made up a small table. It's just made out of a bit of form ply and a bit of MDF on the top. Look, you could make it out of a steel top, but I find that using an arc welder with the splatter from the welding, you end up with little dilberries on the surface, and that can make it difficult for placement of spokes. So I find they don't burn. I've done lots of wheels before and the timber doesn't burn, so I found that that's a good way to go. So how this works is you get your rim. I might turn this around. You get your rim. I've got this little bracket over the top. We've got our hub, and we put the hub in the middle, and we now pin that down with this little lever. So that holds it down nice and firm. We can then get our engineer's square and just make sure that it is level. I mean, it has actually been cut level on the cut-off saw, and the table is level, so it's going to be fairly close straight away. But if it is a little bit out, you can just change the pressure from one side to another, or just move the bottom. But look, so far that looks all right. Won't know until we start putting the spokes in. So here's the 6 spokes that I've cut, and they're all cut and hopefully will fit nicely. Before I start fitting the spokes, I've got these little metal blocks, and what I do is I put them inside the wheel so that I can sit the spokes on top of those, and that gives that measurement of the offset of the spokes, the distance out from here. So it gives you a nice even distance with no error. So what we can do now is we can start slotting our spokes in and giving that a little bit of an adjustment because I don't have it centered. Let's see if we can just move the rim. Just keep moving until we can get it nice and firm. And we just keep going around. I'll put 4 spokes in to start with, and that will make sure that the wheel is centered, and then I can start welding. So we'll just get 4 spokes in, and then we can get some magnetic squares in there just to hold each of those spokes straight. Okay, so now I have a V square so that I can actually just run this across, because these work really well on pipe to make sure that you're running a line straight across. So if I just sit that on there, and I've got my center punch dot here, I need to get it into the center of the axle hub. So now I can just adjust that slightly, and I'll now put a weld on that to get that one set, and we'll go on from there. I need to put some clamps to make sure that as I weld, the rim stays firmly positioned, and I can see the moment I clamp that down, that came up a little bit there. So we'll put clamps all the way around, and that will hold everything nicely and firmly in place. Okay, so that's got that one just lightly tack welded in. Now we just put our V square across that again, just to make sure that it is looking straight. In actual fact, we might also tack the spoke on the other side. So I can see that needs, there we go. So we'll just tack this spoke now. Okay, we can now look across this wheel and see just by eye whether the spoke looks right. Now that one there, that one looks perfect. This second spoke does look as if it needs a bit of a tap. So we'll just double check that. Yep, so that looks good. So we'll go ahead now and weld the other side of each of those spokes in, and then we can move on to the next spoke. Okay, so now we can take our squares out because those spokes will now be set there, and now we can work on our second set of spokes. So we've just got to now move our little chocks and our spoke around to the next centre punched mark, and we'll put a magnetic square in there to hold that in place. We might move our earth around a little bit. We'll get our next spoke to line up with another Okay, so we can see, or I can see, that it's not quite centred. Okay, we'll get these next spokes tacked in. We'll get our V square. And this should be sitting in there that I don't need to worry too much about that. But I can see that this needs to go over. Put the V square back on, slide it around. I might have gone just a tiny little bit too far. Just double check again. Maybe still just a little bit too far. That looks good. I'll tack that spoke in now. Okay, now we'll get our V square and we'll just take a look at this next spoke. Okay, well, we're already now up to, we've just got to make sure that we don't have little welding spots on our chocks, because that will create a difficulty. Okay, so that's the technical part of the wheel done. Now realistically we can just take all our clamps off, and now it's just a case of sitting it on the bench and welding it all up. So we've done all the hard work. We can now take it out of our bracket. So now we're just going to go around and we'll tack weld all of these spokes on this side, and then we'll get stuck into welding each of the spokes on nice and firmly. Okay, now just to try and get this wheel cleaned up a little bit, we're going to use a cordless drill with a nice little wire brush on the end, and we'll just run it around all the welds and just clean everything up so that it has a nice finished look to it. Okay, our wheels come up pretty well. I'll just bring him up closer so you can have a look. So it's all welded up really nice. In fact, this wheel now is realistically ready for undercoat paint. There might be a couple of little welding dilberies still on there, but it's actually a really nice wheel. So really pleased with how that's come up. What I do is I get a bit of colour bond flashing off the shed, and I slide that inside the axle hub, and it creates it. For one, it takes up any slack or slop that might be in the hole. So once I get the flashing inside, I can then slide my axle in. It's a nice firm fit. And let's give it a spin and just see how it rolls. Let's get it lined up with the camera a little bit better. Okay, so here's the finished wheel. It's come out really nicely. It's taken about 2 hours to make, hasn't cost a lot, few tools involved. I hope my video might help you if you've been looking to make a wheel and not sure how to go about it. It's pretty simple. Anyway, I hope you have some success with your wheels, and catch you in the next video.